Now, before you panic, let me explain something to you every single day. With every decision you make, you're already taking a mark. The question isn't if. The question is which. You're already taking the mark every day, whether you realize it or not. It's not about some future moment when the world forces you to make a decision under pressure. It's about the small, daily choices you make that stack up and silently shape the direction of your life. When people hear the phrase, taking the mark, they often imagine a distant apocalyptic event, some dramatic moment of decision. But the reality is far more subtle and far more dangerous, because most people aren't waiting to take the mark, they already have. Every time you choose comfort over calling, you're taking the mark. Every time you trade what you believe for what is convenient, you're taking the mark. Every time you hide your gifts, shrink back from opportunity, or silence your voice in the name of staying safe or staying liked, you're not escaping the system. You're submitting to it. You're aligning with the wrong kingdom, and you don't even know it. And here's what makes it so deceptive. This mark isn't always visible. It's not on your forehead. It's not on your hand. It's in your choices, your habits, your lifestyle. It's in the way you talk, the way you think, and what you tolerate. You're not just a human being. You're a spiritual being with the power to create, to lead, to influence, to build. But when you lay down that authority in exchange for a paycheck or a pat on the back, you're marking yourself as average, as owned, as compliant. Systems of control don't always come with chains. Sometimes they come with applause. Sometimes they come with promotions. Sometimes they come dressed in the language of security, responsibility, and being realistic. But what they really are is a counterfeit calling. You see, this world wants to put a price tag on your soul. It wants you to measure your worth by metrics that don't matter. It wants you to believe that following your calling is risky, but following the system is safe. That's the great deception. The system will offer you just enough to keep you quiet, just enough to keep you busy, just enough to keep you distracted. But in the process, it's branding you. It's marking you. Not with fire or force, but with fear and familiarity. You will know what mark you're carrying by what you're willing to settle for. If you're settling for less than you were created for, it's not because that's all there is. It's because you've been conditioned to believe that's all you deserve. But make no mistake, that conditioning is a form of marking. And the longer you wear it, the deeper it gets. Think about your daily decisions. What time you wake up, how you spend your time, what kind of people you allow around you, what thoughts you tolerate, what excuses you defend. These are not neutral actions. These are acts of allegiance. And most people are more committed to their excuses than they are to their purpose. That's not because they're lazy. It's because they've already taken the mark of mediocrity, the mark of conformity, the mark of fear. It's subtle, but it's powerful. When you choose what's easy over what's right, that's not just a poor choice. It's a pivot in your purpose. It's you saying, I'd rather be accepted than be great. And that's how the enemy wins, not by showing up as a monster, but by showing up as a mindset. The wrong mark will make you think small, act small, and stay small. It will convince you that survival is success, that security is the goal, and that risk is recklessness. But deep down, your spirit knows better. Your soul knows you were born to break out, to build, to influence, to reign. But if your mind has already been marked, your actions will never follow. You can see the mark in the way people respond to opportunity. Some hear opportunity and they lean in. They get excited, they prepare, they jump. Others hear opportunity and they hesitate. They question, they shrink, they default to doubt. What's the difference? One has been marked for possibility. The other has been marked by fear. That's how deep it goes. The mark determines how you interpret reality. It shapes how you view yourself, your future, and your potential. It's not a question of if you'll take the mark. It's a question of whether you've already taken it and whether you're willing to break it. Because every day, with every decision, every action, every compromise, you are signaling what kingdom you belong to. There are two systems operating in this world, and they are not just philosophical ideas or religious metaphors. They are real, tangible systems that influence every part of your life, your decisions, your relationships, your income, your identity, and your destiny. One system is built on fear, control, and limitation. It operates through manipulation, scarcity, and conformity. It rewards obedience to mediocrity and punishes deviation from the norm. It doesn't care about your purpose, your calling, or your greatness. It only cares about your compliance. The other system is rooted in faith, abundance, and divine purpose. It's built on truth, legacy, and multiplication. It rewards boldness, clarity, obedience to a higher calling, and alignment with the Creator's original intent for your life. The system you submit to is the system that marks you. The majority of people live their entire lives inside the wrong system and never even realize it because the system has been normalized. It looks like a traditional job with just enough pay to keep you too tired to dream. It looks like safe advice from people who gave up on their own potential long ago. It looks like routines that keep you busy but never productive. It sounds like voices telling you to be realistic, to be careful, to avoid standing out. And if you're not intentional, you'll mistake that system for reality. But it's not reality. It's a counterfeit designed to keep you enslaved in your mind, limited in your belief, and dependent on a structure that never had your best interest in mind. This system of fear thrives on your silence. It gains power every time you settle for less. It tightens its grip every time you trade vision for validation. But just because you were born into that system doesn't mean you have to stay there. The moment you become aware of it is the moment you gain the power to reject it. But rejection alone isn't enough. You can't just leave one system, you have to adopt another. The system of faith and abundance is not just about escaping struggle. It's about stepping into a higher order where you operate not from survival, but from assignment. In this system, identity is not earned, it is received. Value is not negotiated, it is recognized. And provision flows through purpose, not performance. In the system of fear, everything must be earned through toil, through proving, through suffering. But in the system of purpose, your results are based on your alignment, not your hustle. This is why two people can work the same hours, have the same education, even the same resources, but produce completely different results. One is operating inside a limited system, trying to climb a broken ladder. The other is building their own tower by revelation, by faith, by divine instruction. When you understand the system you're in, you stop comparing your process to others because you realize the systems are not the same. The enemy doesn't need to destroy your life if he can convince you to stay inside the wrong system. He'll let you have just enough success to keep you pacified, just enough progress to keep you from questioning, just enough comfort to make you afraid of change. That's how the system of fear works. It uses false rewards to keep you from pursuing the real ones. And if you're not careful, you'll start defending the very thing that's destroying you. You'll start preaching scarcity like it's wisdom. You'll call caution discernment. You'll think comfort is peace, but that's not peace. It's sedation. And sedation is not safety, it's surrender. In the system of abundance and calling, the measurements are different. You're not judged by how well you blend in, but by how boldly you obey. You're not rewarded for perfection, but for persistence. You're not praised for avoiding failure, but for learning how to turn it into fuel. This system does not promise ease, but it does promise fruit. The question is not whether you want fruit. The question is whether you're willing to leave the barren system that's been feeding you lies about what's possible. Most people are unaware of the system they're in until they hit a wall. Maybe the job that promised security lets them go. Maybe the life they built feels empty. Maybe the success they chase turns out to be a cage. These moments are not coincidences, they are invitations. An invitation to recognize the system and to choose another. To realize that life is not meant to be endured, it's meant to be led. But you cannot lead your life if you're following a system that was never designed for leaders. Every system has a reward structure. In the world system, the rewards are temporary and conditional. They expire and they can be taken away. In the system of faith and purpose, the rewards are eternal and secured. They don't depend on who likes you, who hires you, or who recognizes you. They depend on your obedience, your alignment, and your willingness to walk away from what's familiar in order to pursue what's true. The mark of purpose is never something you stumble into by accident. It is something you decide to take. It doesn't fall into your lap. It's not a matter of waiting for the stars to align or for people to finally recognize your worth. Purpose isn't passive. It's a choice. And the moment you realize that is the moment you begin to shift. Too many people are sitting around waiting for permission to walk in power, to speak with authority, to build something meaningful, to release what's been placed inside of them. But permission never precedes purpose. Decision does. Every move that changes the trajectory of your life starts with a decision, not a feeling, not a confirmation, not an opportunity, a decision. You don't need the approval of people to step into the assignment that's been marked on your life since before you were born. You don't need everyone to understand it. You don't need the world to clap for it. In fact, the mark of purpose often looks foolish to people who are trapped in the system of comfort, because the mark of purpose will ask you to walk away from safety. It will require you to ignore the opinions of people who've never walked in your shoes. It will demand that you risk being misunderstood. That's why so many people avoid it. It's not because they don't feel the pull. It's because they're waiting for someone else to validate the call that only God can confirm. The system of this world teaches you to wait. Wait until you're qualified. Wait until you're rich. Wait until you're confident. Wait until you're sure. But purpose doesn't wait, it activates. And it activates the moment you decide to obey. When you decide, things start moving. Resources appear, opportunities align, connections are drawn to you. But none of that happens until you make the first move. You can't microwave purpose. You have to initiate it. You have to decide that what's inside you is more real than what's around you. And that decision doesn't come with perfect conditions. It often comes in the middle of a mess. You decide while you're still afraid. You decide while you're still under pressure. You decide while everything around you says, this doesn't make sense. That's the test. That's what separates the mark from the mediocre. The people who wait for perfect alignment never start. But those who decide based on identity, not circumstance, are the ones who shift the atmosphere. Because the power is in the decision. It's not in your background. It's not in your resume. It's not in your connections. It's in your decision to align with what you were created for. People spend so much time searching for clarity, thinking it's the key to purpose. But clarity doesn't come before the decision. It comes after. You don't get clarity and then act. You act and then gain clarity. Because purpose unfolds. It doesn't announce itself in full. You get a glimpse and you move. You get a whisper and you obey. You get a conviction and you take the first step. That's how people who are marked for purpose operate. They're not waiting to be comfortable. They're not waiting to be perfect. They're not waiting to be certain. They've simply decided that what God put in them is more powerful than what the world has put around them. Most people have the potential. They have the ideas, the insight, the gifts, the experience. But they're missing one thing, the decision to move. They think their problem is a lack of knowledge or opportunity. But it's not. It's a lack of decision. The enemy doesn't have to take your vision if he can keep you indecisive. He'll surround you with distractions. He'll make you double-minded. He'll keep you researching instead of building, preparing instead of producing, dreaming instead of doing. Because as long as you haven't decided, you haven't activated. And if you haven't activated, you haven't taken the mark. Taking the mark of purpose means you've drawn a line in the sand. It means you've burned the bridge back to normal. It means you're no longer negotiating your value with systems that were never designed to celebrate your uniqueness. You stop waiting for the door to open and start building your own gate. You stop asking, who's going to let me? And start declaring, who's going to stop me? That's the posture of someone who's taken the mark of purpose. They don't live by reaction. They live by revelation. They're not driven by what's trending. They're driven by what's true. And they understand that the world doesn't need more people following instructions. It needs more people following conviction. You weren't meant to be a placeholder in someone else's system. You were meant to disrupt, to build, to innovate, to lead. But none of that happens by chance. It happens when you decide, when you stop asking and start commanding, when you stop waiting and start walking, when you stop shrinking and start speaking. Because purpose doesn't knock. It waits for your yes. And that yes is a mark that says you are no longer under the system of delay, distraction, or doubt. You are marked by destiny. And your decision is your declaration. Success without identity is still failure. You can build the business, earn the money, gain the influence, and still be empty because the foundation is off. If your identity isn't rooted in something real, something eternal, everything you build will eventually collapse. You can win in the world's eyes and still lose in heaven's. You can have the numbers, the followers, the awards, and still not be walking in your true assignment. Because results don't always equal purpose. Momentum doesn't always equal alignment. Movement doesn't always equal meaning. And if you're not anchored in who you are, success becomes just another prison, this time with better furniture. There's a kind of success that the world celebrates. It's loud, shiny, impressive. It shows up on timelines and stages. It gets likes, applause, headlines. But if you look close enough, behind the filters and the press releases, you'll often find someone who is performing a version of success that was never theirs to carry. Someone who climbed a ladder that leaned against the wrong wall. Someone who mastered the game but lost themselves in the process because they were chasing a mark instead of embodying one. They built based on what they saw, not based on what they were sent to do. And in doing so, they became successful strangers to themselves. The world is full of people who are overachieving in areas that don't matter. People who are excelling at being who they were never created to be. And the reason is simple. When you don't know who you are, you'll become whatever gets you the most praise. You'll adapt to survive. You'll change your voice, your vision, your values to fit into a room that was never meant to hold you. You'll trade authenticity for applause. And every time you do, you drift further and further from the real you. The you that was designed with purpose, assigned before birth, equipped with divine intelligence to do something that has never been done before in the exact way you're meant to do it. Identity is not just about knowing your name or your past. It's about knowing your source. It's about knowing why you were created and what you were sent to release into the earth. And when you don't have that, you start performing for acceptance. You start measuring yourself by external results. But purpose is not a performance. It's a posture of knowing that who you are is not up for negotiation. It's not dependent on public opinion. It's not fragile. It's not for sale. It's established. It's rooted in something deeper than likes or validation. It's anchored in assignment. When you lack identity, success amplifies your insecurities. It magnifies the cracks in your foundation. It exposes what was hidden in private and brings it to the surface. Because success brings pressure. It brings weight. It brings visibility. And if you haven't settled who you are in secret, you'll collapse under the spotlight. You'll get addicted to the applause. You'll chase relevance instead of truth. You'll start making decisions from fear of losing your status, your following, your influence. But when you are rooted in identity, success becomes a tool, not a trap. It becomes a platform for purpose, not a prison of performance. People often chase success, hoping it will fix their sense of worth. They think more money, more recognition, more power will finally make them feel valuable. But if you don't feel valuable without it, you won't feel valuable with it. Because external validation can never fill the void of internal confusion. That's why so many high achievers crash. They hit the top and realize they brought their broken self with them. They reach the goal and still feel like something is missing. Because success built without identity is fragile, it's temporary, it's hollow. Real success is not what you accumulate, it's what you activate. It's what you become in alignment with your original design. It's when your business flows from your belief, when your platform reflects your purpose, when your voice carries the weight of your values. That kind of success is unshakable because it's not based on trends, it's based on truth. And truth doesn't expire. Truth doesn't go out of style. Truth doesn't need to be rebranded. It just needs to be embodied. When you operate from identity, you stop chasing and start attracting. You stop hustling for worth and start walking in authority. You no longer need the world to crown you because you've already been called. And that calling is the mark. That calling is what separates temporary noise from eternal impact. That calling is what gives meaning to your motion. It's what turns a business into a mission, a message into a movement. But without identity, all of that is just performance. It's just survival with a smile. And deep down, you know the difference. There will always be a price for walking in your purpose. The mark doesn't come cheap. It costs comfort, convenience, and conformity. It demands surrender, not just of your habits, but of your identity as it was shaped by the system of limitation. Purpose doesn't just pull you forward, it also requires you to let go. Let go of the version of you that was built for survival. Let go of the image you created to fit into places you were never meant to stay. Let go of the attachments to outcomes, applause, and approval. Because the mark will take you through seasons where nothing makes sense on paper, but everything makes sense in your spirit. When you say yes to purpose, you are saying no to every counterfeit assignment. You are refusing the roles the world tried to assign to you, roles that were too small, too safe, too scripted. You're no longer available for average. You're no longer eligible for excuses. You're stepping into a realm where obedience matters more than opinion, where clarity is born from commitment, and where progress often looks like pruning. That's the part people don't want to talk about. Everyone wants the platform, but no one wants the process. Everyone wants the oil, but few are willing to be crushed. But purpose will crush you, not to destroy you, but to extract what's inside of you, to remove everything false so that only the real you remains. When you're marked, you'll find yourself walking away from things that used to define you. You'll feel the tension between what you know and where you're called. You'll begin to recognize that not every opportunity is an assignment. You'll see that good things can still be distractions. And that's when you realize that the deeper the calling, the narrower the path. You won't be able to do what everyone else is doing. You won't be able to fit into the mold. You'll be called to higher standards, deeper sacrifice, greater obedience. Not because you're better, but because you're chosen. And chosen people don't blend in. They build, they shift, they lead. This is where many turn back because the cost becomes visible. It's not just long nights and hard work. It's isolation. It's being misunderstood. It's stepping into rooms where no one sees you yet and still choosing to speak like you belong. It's building with no blueprint, trusting the vision even when the visibility is limited. It's obeying instructions that don't match the logic of your current situation. That's why the mark can't be imitated. You can copy the aesthetics, the language, the branding, but you can't fake the weight. The weight reveals who's truly marked and who's merely mimicking. The mark places a demand on your life that comfort cannot carry. You won't be able to stay where it's easy. You won't be able to retreat into familiarity because the mark activates a calling that will keep waking you up at night, whispering reminders of what you were born to release. And the more you try to silence it with distraction, the louder it becomes. It will not let you rest in mediocrity. It will not let you make peace with a life that looks good but feels off. It will pull you. It will stretch you. It will expose the areas where you've been living below your design. Purpose is not polite. It will interrupt your plans. It will ruin your excuses. It will conflict with your calendar. But it will also awaken you to dimensions of yourself that you didn't know existed. The part of you that's bold, that's wise, that's resilient, that's creative beyond reason. The part of you that's not afraid to lead, not afraid to fail, not afraid to be seen in your full authenticity. And once you taste life at that level, once you taste purpose, you'll never settle again. You'll never be able to go back to faking it. You'll never be able to tolerate the shallow conversations, the safe decisions, the surface level goals. You'll crave depth. You'll chase alignment. You'll pursue truth even when it costs you everything. This is what the mark does. It redefines your metrics. You no longer measure life by how comfortable you are, but by how obedient you are. You no longer measure success by how much you've gained, but by how much you've released. You start to understand that purpose isn't about elevation, it's about extraction. It's about becoming the version of yourself that God intended before you were shaped by culture, trauma, and fear. And becoming that version means sacrificing everything that no longer fits. The cost is real, but so is the calling. And when you've truly counted the cost, you stop flinching at the process. You stop negotiating with delay. You stop reasoning with fear. You understand that everything you lose on the way to purpose was never really yours to begin with, because the mark will only rest on the version of you that's willing to lose the world to gain your assignment. The mark will always reveal your opposition. The moment you take it, the moment you step into alignment with your assignment, the resistance intensifies. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you've finally started doing something right. The enemy never attacks what isn't a threat. He doesn't bother with lives that are going nowhere. But the moment you start moving with intention, the moment you stop blending in and start walking in boldness, the warfare begins. The people who used to celebrate you may begin to question you. The support you thought was solid starts to shake. The doors that opened easily before now seem locked. That's not coincidence. That's confirmation. The opposition is the evidence. It's a signal that you've shifted into a different dimension, one that demands a new level of spiritual authority. And here's the truth most people won't tell you: the more weight your purpose carries, the greater the warfare around it. Because now you're not just carrying ideas, you're carrying impact. You're carrying generational freedom. You're carrying systems, structures, movements. You're not just talking about transformation, you're initiating it. And transformation always provokes resistance. You're threatening territory that darkness thought it owned. You're disrupting dysfunction that has been normalized for generations. You're breaking cycles that were never meant to continue. You cannot walk in power and expect peace with your past. You cannot carry the mantle and remain invisible. The moment you step into your mark, you become a target. And not because you're weak, but because of what you represent. You represent the end of excuses, the collapse of comfort, the rise of purpose. You are not just a person. You are a strategy, a divine intervention, a solution sent in human form. And that makes you dangerous to everything that's been built on lies, fear, and small thinking. That makes you a disruptor in the spirit. And disruption is never welcomed by systems that profit from your silence. So don't be surprised when the attacks come. Don't be shocked when the opposition feels personal. That's how it works. It goes for your emotions. It goes for your mind. It tries to distract you with drama. It tries to seduce you back into safe thinking. It tries to tempt you to water down your voice, to second guess your vision, to shrink back into roles that feel familiar. But when you've taken the mark, you understand that resistance is not a sign to retreat, it's a sign to rise. To fortify your mind, to sharpen your discernment, to deepen your conviction. Because the warfare isn't trying to destroy you, it's trying to disqualify you in your own mind. The biggest battle won't be external. It won't be about enemies you can see. It will be about the inner conversations no one hears. The thoughts that tell you you're not ready. The doubt that tells you to wait a little longer. The fear that whispers, what if you fail? The voice of past mistakes trying to question your present calling. But you weren't marked because you were perfect. You were marked because you were chosen. Chosen doesn't mean qualified. It means purposed. It means sent. It means equipped with something greater than credentials, greater than validation, greater than performance. You were sent to move something in the earth. And the enemy knows that. That's why every time you get close to breakthrough, the pressure increases. Every time you start building momentum, something tries to pull you back because the mark is costly and not everyone around you will be able to handle it. Some people loved you as long as you stayed quiet, as long as you stayed normal. But the moment you rise, they start feeling convicted by your clarity. The moment you shine, they start projecting their fear onto your faith. That's part of the process. You'll have to learn how to walk alone, how to encourage yourself, how to lead without applause. Because the assignment isn't for validation, it's for impact. And impact requires isolation. It requires incubation. It requires seasons where no one sees the full picture, but you still keep building. Where no one claps, but you still keep showing up. Where the weight feels unbearable, but you know quitting would cost you more than continuing. That's when the mark becomes your anchor. It reminds you of why you started. It pulls you through the fog. It gives you vision when visibility is low, because purpose doesn't promise ease. It promises evidence. And evidence shows up after endurance. You will be misunderstood. You will be misquoted. You will be underestimated. But you will also be marked. And that mark will carry you through moments where motivation fails. It will sustain you through seasons where support is scarce. Because the mark is not about being seen. It's about being sent. It's not about popularity. It's about power. It's not about applause. It's about authority, and authority doesn't need permission. It doesn't wait for consensus. It moves when the Spirit says move. It speaks when silence feels safer. It acts when delay feels easier. Because the mark doesn't ask for comfort. It demands obedience.